Let him go, let him go. Oh wait, time out. That's a different movie. That's Frozen. This is Let Him Go, starring Diane and Kevin Costner. Okay, so let's talk about Let Him Go. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review to kick off the week. Yes, we're talking Let Him Go, directed by Thomas Bazooka. This is his first film in 9 years and is starring an all-star cast with Kevin Costner, Diane Lane, and even Leslie Manville. This is awesome. So Man of Steel fans, eat your hearts out. Clark Kent's parents are back on the big screen together. It's pretty cool. Now, this movie is based off of a novel by Larry Watson, and if you don't know much about the novel, or if you haven't even heard of this movie, let's talk about what it is. Let Him Go surrounds the story of a retired sheriff named George, played by Kevin Costner, and his wife Margaret, played by Diane Lane, and they're grieving over the death of their son. While they're grieving, their grandson and former daughter-in-law moves away with her abusive husband, so it's up to George and Margaret to find their grandson and former daughter-in-law to hopefully bring them back home safely. It has a very compelling premise, which we'll talk about, but does the movie work all the way through? That was my biggest question after the first act ended. Before we get into my review, guys, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I talk about movies and TV early just for you. So if you want to stay in the conversation and join the real family, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on the bell so you don't miss out on anything new. We got some Legend of Korra reactions dropping this week, and on Friday, my review of Season 2, Episode 2 for The Mandalorian. And hey, go ahead and like this video if you haven't, and get loud in the comments and let me know, are you watching this movie this week? It's supposed to hit theaters, surprisingly, or are you just gonna wait for it on digital? Okay guys, so let's get into what works with Let Him Go, and there are a couple of things that work. It starts with our leads. Diane Lane and Kevin Costner really just have a presence without even needing to say anything. They're legends. When they come on screen, they command your attention, which is cool. And I think they do well to play to the solemn atmosphere that is being built in this movie. They're also, I don't know why, but they feel like great grandparents. So yeah, they are flawed, but the thing is, the movie does well to give them center stage, and I feel like for the most part they work well with a script that is less than impressive. And the entire time I really felt the movie did well to engross me in this countryside living. I felt embedded in this small town that was actually pretty large, because these landscape shots were just beautiful. All of the mountains, everything felt really serene for the most part. So I think the cinematography here was just fine, and I do like this very southern feel to the movie. And like I mentioned a bit ago, there's a compelling premise here, and that tends to happen with movies that are based off of novels. I haven't read the novel myself, but there is a very solid foundation here. I mean, this summary, when I read it again, I almost got chills because it sounds so darn compelling. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't heard of many movies this year that are centering around two grandparents trying to go and save their grandson. It sounds really darn unique. And then along the way, the story does introduce us to some characters that have stories of their own that unfortunately aren't explored as much, and one of those characters was probably one of the more interesting parts of the story for me. It's a character played by actor Boo Boo Stewart, and he's really good. I don't know, there's not another word I can say without spoiling anything, but he's very, I don't know, you could tell he's carrying a lot of his past with him, and I wanted the story to almost explore more of his character rather than anyone else's. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So we have a compelling premise, it looks pretty, Diane Lane and Kevin Costner are awesome. Where did this movie go wrong? And that's in the script department. Man, the writing in this movie is among the worst I've seen this year. Now, like I said, this is Thomas Bazooka's first movie in 9 years. He directed this film, and he also wrote the script for this movie. I almost feel like maybe there needed to either be a second writer attached, or he needed to just give up control in that department too and just have someone else write the script, because it doesn't seem like he had a very good grasp on the story and what could have made it so much better. And one thing that could have made this movie better is just having dialogue that is snappy, maybe conversations that aren't so dry and more dynamic. And that's what frustrated me so much about this movie, is because so often they're shoving emotion in your face, and yes, they're breaking the cardinal sin, expositional dialogue. So they're telling us about these very traumatic moments our characters have gone through, rather than showing us these moments or trying to tell us about very happy memories instead of showing us these happy memories. And the movie is worse off for it. And then I feel that there's character development that was definitely needed in this first act, just to tie me in emotionally to these characters, and unfortunately I felt very disconnected from both of our leads. The movie really does try to fill in the gaps with these flashbacks and give us a sense of character development, but but because they glide over a very important moment in this first act, I almost felt like, how could I even feel anything for these characters? Because the movie doesn't give us time to settle with them. Only once does this film successfully give us a flashback that presents a really nice moment between Kevin Costner's character and his grandson in the film. And that worked for me, but it lasted 10 seconds. And I thought to myself, okay, see, we should have gotten more of these moments, because then and only then would I have felt a little bit more connected to our lead characters. And gosh, it's so frustrating as an audience member. And even with our supporting cast, when we're introduced to the grandson's stepfather and his family, it almost feels like the movie is at that point a little bit lost and is just saying, here are your bad guys. They're bad because we say they are. Not oftentimes did I feel like I understood the motives for this family. They were just awful people to be awful people, and maybe that is how real life is sometimes, but the movie doesn't do a good job at kind of weaving that into the story very naturally. And arguably my biggest gripe with this movie is the score. See, Let Him Go has all the makings for a very solemn, suspenseful, and even dramatic tale, and the score could have been the thing that maybe would have put it over the top a little bit or just excused the mess. But I was shocked when I saw who composed the score. Michael Giacchino, who is fantastic. He's worked on Star Trek movies, Spider-Man films, like the Batman upcoming. Are you kidding me? Unfortunately, the score really is overbearing. It crescendos at the wrong time, and it feels a little cheesy and generic, and that's really weird to say because Michael Giacchino is a fantastic composer, but this is arguably the worst composition I've heard in his career. And then the movie really tries to hit a home run in that third act, and let me tell you, I did not buy it. I mean, while I did find some of the suspense to work in the last half of the movie, I think by then it really was just too little, too late. I was so disengaged with everything, and I was disconnected from anything happening on screen that everything they tried to do in that third act, I get the themes and the tones they were trying to push to the audience, but for me it just didn't work. So overall, you guys, with the movie that boasts a cast including Diane Lane, Kevin Costner, and even Leslie Manville, like I mentioned earlier, it just fails to get me engaged with the story. The writing issues are everywhere, and I mean, on a technical level, this movie looks pretty, but outside of the cinematography, not much is working in its favor. The score doesn't really get me in the mood. I don't necessarily feel like any of the transitions between our first, second, and third acts are smooth. So the movie has a ton of issues. Where the movie should have convinced me in tense moments, it didn't. And in moments where I felt like the film just lost any intrigue is where it should have been the most interesting. There's just a lot of misses rather than hits with Let Him Go, and that is such a shame because this cast is really impressive, and unfortunately it should have been what made this movie so darn enjoyable, but unfortunately I walked away thinking this is going to be one of the more forgettable movies of 2020. So yeah, the direction is less than stellar, the script is not very good, and not even the actors could save this movie, so we're left with a half-baked product. Let Him Go should have been so much better, but maybe now I'm convinced to read the novel because hopefully that'll wipe away the sour taste in my mouth. So there you have it, you guys. That's my real review of Let Him Go, a movie that I unfortunately was disconnected with from the beginning to the end, but I want to know what you guys have to say about this film, so get loud in the comments and let me know, are you seeing this movie this week, or are you going to put it off and maybe see it somewhere down the line? And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected by tapping that bell so you get new videos in your inbox every single time I drop them this week. And guys, we got a busy 2020 to come. I got November and December looking real jam-packed, so stay with me, guys. And again, I thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys at the next screening.